Hello everyone, Genki here. Of the three elemental spell types in Skyrim, Fire, Frost, and Shock, Frost is the weakest. Not only do Nords have a 50% resistance, but so do Draugr. Let's just see how weak it is, as I play through Skyrim's main quest using primarily Frost spells. I say primarily because Skyrim does have creatures immune to Frost. To deal with those, I'll be using Hand to Hand, which is why I'm proud to introduce our protagonist, Lizard Wizard the Argonian. Hand to Hand is only for monsters immune to Frost, so we ran our way through Hug and Keep. We then activated the Mage Stone, and bought our first spell from Lucan and Riverwood. We then took on Embershard Mine, for some easy experience. However, destruction levels up slowly, so we only got half a level from the bandits. Back in town, we used the money from the bandits to buy a mage backpack, giving us 20 more magicka before making our way towards Big Falls Barrow. We reached level 2 on the bandits outside. Without hesitation, we took the Novice Destruction perk, having the magicka cost of Frostbite. Inside Bleak Falls, we surprisingly got our first try victory against the bandit outlaw, though it did take most of our magicka potions. We also beat the Frostbite Spider without dying, but we had to use a couple health potions. This led us into the Draugr section, and Frostbite was actually doing decent damage. Here was also when I realized Frostbite had a damage over time effect like flames. Overall, we didn't really have much issues in terms of damage, especially when we hit level 3, when we took the Destruction dual casting perk. We did have issues with that one required Restless Draugr encounter. However, then this happened. We then took on the boss of the dungeon, a Draugr Overlord. Frostbite of course did pitiful damage. A full magical bar only did 10% of the Draugr's health. To beat the boss, we resorted to some cheese. By jumping up and down the platform the Overlord's coffin was on, we could mess with his pathing, allowing us to shoot pot shots at him until he went down. The Overlord's sword did not get the memo though. With him defeated, we could now grab the Dragonstone and make our way back to Riverwood. Using the money from the loot we collected, we bought a pair of hide bracers of minor alchemy, a pair of steel gauntlets, and a pair of steel boots from Alvor. I'm not going to go over every alchemy session, but we did use a lot of alchemy. We then made our way to Whiterun, where we hit level 4 and took the Apprentice Destruction perk. We then bought Ice Spec from Sovngarde, before turning in the Dragonstone. The Jarl then gave us a second pair of hide bracers of minor alchemy, before sending us to take on our first dragon. Against Mjolnir, we were forced to single cast Ice Spike, as dual casting used up too much magicka. However, that wasn't really an issue, as Ice Spike had incredible range. We took out the dragon not only on our first try, but also hitless. Back at Whiterun, I used the money from the dragon's bones to buy oak flesh. We then turned in the quest to the Jarl, who told us to go meet the Greybeards. For the Axe of Whiterun this playthrough, we got a frost enchantment. How fitting. Too bad I can't use it. On the way out of Whiterun, we came across a scavenger, who got us to level 5, where we took the Novice Alteration perk. Upon reaching the 7,000 steps though, all we came across were wolves and the infamous Frost Troll, who we of course ran past. Inside Hrothgar, we were initiated into the Old Men's Scrim at Clouds Club, before being tasked with raiding a tomb for the Horn of Jorgen McDurgan. The bandits outside the tomb of Oostergrave were Nords, so they were a challenge to take care of. Thankfully the Necromancer was a high elf. His ward was a pain with Ice Spike though, but we were able to overcome it with Frostbite. Inside the tomb, we were also having issues with the mages, just for the answer to again be Frostbite. I tried to take on the Draugr right after, but we were in dire need of potions, so I made a trip to Watch. No, using flames to open the door does not fail the challenge. Flames is not dealing damage. With the ingredients inside, we were able to make ourselves a bunch of health and magic potions. Back in Oostengrove, we focused only on the Draugr, trying to keep the mages alive. This resulted in the mages taking out all the base level Draugr, leaving only the one restless. We then got 2 fake kill cams, before finally getting the real one. We are on expert for those wondering. This was sadly not the only restless Draugr in Oostengrove. We had to deal with one in the next room. However, we did hit level 6, and finally took the Augmented Frost perk, boosting our spells by 25%. We also switched to Frostbite, as we could still use it at low magicka. Following this encounter though, we blazed through the rest of Oostengrove. Not even the spiders at the end of our challenge, allowing us to grab the not Horn of Jorgen McDurgan. With us now at a decent level, I decided it was time for Lizard Wizard to join the College of Winterhold. We got ourselves some novice robes of destruction and a free lesser ward spell, but then we had to take on Starthal. The random fugitive event did spawn, giving us a pair of iron boots of frost resistance, so that's neat. Inside Starthal, we had to deal with a bunch of Draugr, and while Ice Spike was dealing decent damage, it was 12th tier's flame spell that carried us. Halfway through, 12th tier temporarily leaves us, but I was not ready to move on. Instead, I left Starthal and made my way south of Winterhold. This was so we could activate the Atronach Stone, giving us 50 more magicka and a 50% chance of magical absorption in exchange for a 50% decrease to magical regen. The decrease in magical regen is technically nullified by our robes. With this, we made our way back to Starthal, and everything was going fine, until we reached the room with the Draugr White. The Draugr was rocking a Warhammer, meaning no chance to recharge our magicka from its frost magic. To beat it, we had to burst fire Frostbite as we led her across the room. This took a while, but we got it done. 12th tier then soon joined us, as we reached the room with the Magnus and the boss of the dungeon, Yurik Olderson. Guess what? Yurik is immune to frost magic. This was our first fight where we were forced to fight with hand to hand, so I activated his skin for health regen and started smacking. With 10 damage per swing, we took out Yurik in less than 30 seconds. Okay, so according to USP, Yurik Golderson has a special rotating cloak spell, and when he gets to a certain element, he is now immune to that element, so I could have started using frost magic when he went to his lightning cloak. Whoops. We now had to go back to the college and talk to the Arch-mage, who sent us to talk to Urag, the keeper for the Arcanium, though Urag did not have anything that could help us. Or well, not anymore. A former student named Orthorn stole some books, and joined a band of rogue mages. The mages were based at Felglow Keep. However, before taking on the dungeon, I first made a trip to Whiterun to stock up on some potions. However, we ended up running into Mirak's cultists. They went down thanks to the assistance of a guard. Outside Felglow Keep, the novice Ice Mage went down to a single dual-casted Ice Spike. The Flame Atronach Thrall was a 2 KO. This left only the Apprentice Fire Mage, who we only took out thanks to our magic absorption. The Apprentice Mages in general were pretty tough. We did make use of the captured vampires and Orthorn. Otherwise, the room with the 2 Apprentice Fire Mages would have been a nightmare. The books Orthorn took were at the end of the dungeon, in the hands of the Caller. The Caller has a unique power, where she can switch places with her summoned Flame Atronach. While this was annoying, Ice Spike in combination with Orthorn's Firebolts made short work of the Caller. With the books now in our possession, we returned them to Urag, who rewarded us with a bunch of skill books, getting us to level 8, where we took Apprentice Alteration. We then had talk with 12th tier, leading us to talking to a Psijic Mage, telling us to find the Augur of Dunlane. The Augur is a giant ball of what I am assuming to be magic. He told us to find the Staff of Magnus. We relayed this to the Arch-mage, and he told us to talk to Mirabelle about the location of the staff. A clue to the staff's location could possibly be in the ruins of Mazal. Dwemer ruins are going to be an issue, so I first made a trip to Windhelm in order to read a journal in the inn. This unlocks the Creation Club quest, Con the Web. The journal led us to Krongvanger Cave, which was filled with frostbite spiders. Huge arachnophobia warning coming up. Y'all can look back when I say round of golf. I guess that kind of spoils what I'm doing. Ice Spike made sure work in the normal spiders. The biggest thing this quest does though, is that it changes the end boss from a giant frostbite spider to a web mother, an enemy from Morrowind. We thankfully got the assistance of 2 ghosts. With the spider dead, the ghosts returned to their respective bodies. One of them was our prize, the Fist of Ranagolf, which comes with a 20% boost to all melee and unarmed damage. Though that description is a little off. It's not a 20% boost to unarmed, it's a 20-point boost, making the gloves a stronger, heavy armor version of the gloves of the pugilist. You might be wondering why I went and got these. Well, Dwarven robots are immune to frost. With our fists not doing like 30 damage, the Dwarven spiders went down like 5 hits each. This did not look good. Here's how much damage we do to a Dwarven sphere. Now yes, I could just run away, but I felt that would just make things more complicated in the next load zone. We then hit level 9, where I took the first rank of the Alchemist perk. Past the robots was the Falmer section, who I assumed had some level of frost resistance with them being snow elves. However, since they are not immune to frost, that means we were back to magic. The difficulty was about the same as the robot section. The end room with the form of Gloomlurker may be making it worse than the robots, if it wasn't for a magic absorption. On the Gloomlurker's body was a focus crystal. By putting it into a machine and using frostbite to align the lights it produces with some mirrors, we could discover the Staff of Magnus was in Labyrinthian. However, before continuing the quest, I first sold a bunch of items, in order to buy a set of apprentice robes and an apprentice hood for more Magicka and Magicka region. We then entered the Hall of the Elements, and discovered Ancano, the Thalmor ambassador to the college, had caused the Aya to go crazy. We attempted to stop him, but this resulted in the death of the Arch-mage. This also caused magic anomalies to spawn in Winterhold. While I wish I could join the Giga Chat Arnold gang and fistfight the anomalies, we had to use our magic. Once the anomalies were gone and Winterhold was saved, I decided it was not yet time for Labyrinthian. I first took out the bandits in Hallstream camp, in order to get the transmute ore spell. I then made a bunch of gold rings to sell. Using the money, we got some destruction training from the mage in Windhelm, since Ferrado was not available for training right now. At 45 destruction, we could buy a Frostcloak and Ice Storm. However, we didn't have the money for either. A good way we could make money was through selling dragon bones, so I decided to go back to the main quest to help Delphine take out Solaknir. Solaknir at our current level was using Frost Shouts. This meant he was going to have quite a bit of frost resistance. We almost got in the hat before he decided to fly off. I used this opportunity to regenerate our magic before attacking again. Delphine was thankfully doing a good job keeping Solaknir's attention, as we switched to Frostbite to help finish them all. We could not buy our new spells, which meant it was time for Labyrinthian. The first room in the dungeon was filled with skeletons and a skeleton dragon. Skeleton dragons have a weakness to magic, but it was still too much for us. Instead, I first cheesed the skeletons through the gate using Ice Storm. Along with shooting out a cloud of ice, Ice Storm leaves a trail of frost on the ground that does damage over time. This helped us get rid of all the skeletons before entering the room, and facing the dragon 1v1. We then had to face a Frost Spirit, who was, you guessed it, immune to frost. This led us to a bunch of high-level Draugr. I'm talking multiple Draugr Whites, who took minutes to take out with dual-casted ice spikes. Past them, we had to face a Wismother, who we cheesed using the gate. Past the Wismother, we were faced with Spectral Draugr, who seemed to be weaker to magic than their corporeal counterparts. However, that didn't amount to much. When we got towards the end, I had to face the Draugr Deathlord. Dual-casting ice spikes were only doing a sliver. This ended up not mattering though, as the Deathlord only slow-mo ran at us the entire battle. Each time I got close enough to swing, we just backed away. Past the Deathlord was an ambush including a Draugr Scourge that can summon a Frost Atronach. I just ran past him, straight into the room of Morokei, the boss of the dungeon. However, the Draugr Scourge managed to follow us into the room, so we had to deal with it while running away from its Frost Atronach. We thankfully gave it the disrespect it deserved. Now, in order to free Morokei and get the staff, we had to take out the two ghosts, holding up the barrier surrounding him. These ghosts were immune to frost. However, with them gone, we could take on Morokei, who we managed to cheese thanks to our magic absorption, absorbing the Staff of Magnus's magic absorption. You can't make this up. With the staff in our possession, we could return to the college and face Ancano. This battle was a little weird. As we were using the staff on the eye, Ancano was bombarding us with firebolts. The eye then summoned a magic anomaly, which Ancano started fistfighting. With Ancano distracted, we took him out with ice spikes. This rewarded us with the role of Arch-mage, along with some new robes. I was originally going to pair them with Morokei's mask, but then decided a Circle of Destruction was a better fit. There was no need to hide Lizard Wizard's glorious face. With the side questing done, it was time to reunite with Delphine, who told us that we needed to infiltrate the Thalmor embassy. We were well overpowered at our current state. Not to mention we had level 13. We hit 50 destruction back in Labyrinthian, meaning that we could not take the added destruction perk, having the cost of Ice Storm and Frost Cloak. Ice Storm was taken out the Thalmor soldiers in 2 hits, versus Ice Spikes 3 hits. Rolando Dole was deciding to be a pain in the butt, forcing us to use our now very cheap Ice Spikes to take him out. Using the key we looted off of him, we grabbed the dossier on Esbern and made our way back to Riverwood. We now had to rescue Esbern from the Rift and Ratways. The couple found were there went down as easy as the ones back at the embassy. However, next was a trip to Skyrim Temple, which involved a blood dragon and Forsworn. The blood dragon we got had frost breath. We did quite a bit of damage to it though, before it decided to go attack the Forsworn. The Forsworn mages seemed to be using Firebolt. There was a single ice storm, but I'm guessing that came from the Hagraven. The damage caused the dragon to crash land into its burial site, allowing us to fight it 1v1, using the stones to block its shouts, as we attacked it with Ice Storm. With the dragon defeated, we took on the Forsworn, but they were no match for Ice Storm, giving us easy access to Skyrim Temple and Alduin's Wall, where we discovered we needed a shout to defeat Alduin. The shout we needed, the Dragon Run shout, required an Elder Scroll to obtain, so I made a trip to Northern College, where Septimus Signus was holed up. From him, we obtained the Attunement Sphere and the Blank Lexicon. We now had to take on the Dwarven ruins of Alftan, and as you probably remember, Dwarven robots are immune to frost. Alftan's Falmer were pretty much all basic level Falmer. The difference between now and Resolved was that now we had Ice Storm. There was a single Falmer Skulker, but it went down to a dual-casted Ice Storm. We could now enter Blackreach, which we completely ignored, beelining straight to the Tower of Mazark and grabbing the Elder Scroll. We can now make our way up to the Throne of the World, fist-fighting the occasional Ice Wraith. Once at the top of the mountain, we could use the Elder Scroll and learn the Dragon and Shout. This started our first battle against Alduin. Ice Storm was only doing a sliver per hit, but it was probably still better damage than Ice Spike. The issue with this battle was that Alduin's Fire Breath was draining our health bar. Stoneflesh was not enough. This would have probably been better if I picked up the Mage Armor perk. I would have just needed to take off our gauntlets and boots. I decided to activate his skin. However, this then allowed Alduin to fly off, since powers and shouts use the same button. With Alduin back on the ground, we soon got him grounded permanently. This allowed Alduin to spam his Fire Breath, forcing us to consume a lot of potions. But we can now just spam Ice Storm, taking out Alduin, for now. This wasn't the last we'll see of Alduin. With his remaining strength, Alduin flew off. In order to follow him, we now had to do the Peace Council, just so we could call Odahviing, trap Odahviing, and then convince Odahviing to take us to Skullothin. For some reason, I decided to take out all the Draugr and the two dragons outside the temple. Restless Draugrs were surprisingly a 4K from Ice Storm, meaning it was back to Ice Spike. Also, the first of the two dragons was a Fire Dragon, meaning it had a weakness to Frost Magic. This, plus the staggers from the Impact perk, helped us take it out. The second dragon though was a Frost Dragon, though we now had a new pair of boots, giving us 40% resistance to frost. Past the dragons were more Draugr, including two Draugr Whites, who required us to play Ring Around the Rosie with them, in order to avoid taking massive damage. Onto the inside of the temple. Unlike outside, the interior of Skullothin was mostly base level Draugrs and Restless. The strongest one being an Overlord at the end, who was considerably weaker than the Draugr Whites outside. Once we were back outside, we once again started working on taking out all the Draugr. This left only the Dragon Priest Nockreen. We just spammed the shit out of Ice Spike, stunning Nockreen so much he was not able to pull out his stab before we killed him. On to Sovngarde. To beat Alduin, we need access to the Hall of Valor. That means fighting soon. Okay then. Typically, soon is the hardest fight in Sovngarde, because for the Alduin fight, we have 3 Forged Companions, who not only do most of the damage, but keep Alduin distracted, allowing us to use our Frost Magic. So yeah, we beat Skyrim as a Frost Mage. Kinda. Fire and lightning magic would have definitely made for easier challenges, but by the end, it was only rooms with multiple enemies that were problems. Our battle with the Draugr Overlord was fine, our battle with Nockreen was fine, and our battle with Soon was fine. But a room with multiple high-level Draugrs? Whew, no thank you. Well, anyway, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya.